topic, the SAVE Act, because the House is expected to vote on it soon.
Right.
This legislation would require proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote. It would also require voters to show photo ID when voting. What are your thoughts on the legislation?
I'm opposed to this legislation. It's out in nearly all states, photo IDs are already required. What this legislation does is it basically makes you prove citizenship through your birth certificate or a passport. The majority of Americans don't have a passport. And can you, I'm not sure if you know where your birth certificate is. I happen to know where mine is because I got it many years ago and it's in our safe. But Brittany, what the bill requires is that this disproportionately hurts women and would suppress women and seniors and minorities' ability to vote because it says that your birth certificate has to match your current ID. Well, I was born as Deborah Wasserman, and today my name is Deborah Wasserman Schultz. My names don't align. I'm obviously a citizen, and it is incomprehensible to me that in order to be able to vote, I would have to provide proof that my current name matches up with the name on my birth certificate. That is something that is purely designed as voter suppression. And on top of that, Republicans have now added a provision in the SAVE Act that would have every single elections office be required to turn over voter information to the Department of Homeland Security. There is absolutely no reason for the Homeland Security to have the voter rolls of everyone in America. The only reason that they would have that is so that they can more easily go after Americans and harass them. And that's unacceptable. It's another voter suppression tactic. And the SAVE Act is not. It's designed to solve to provide a solution in search of a problem. The amount of non-citizens voting is infinitely small, and there's no reason to have legislation to prevent non-citizens from voting because they essentially don't vote.
I want to get your take, though, on some poll numbers. A Pew Research Poll last year found that the vast majority of Americans are for showing voter ID at the polls, 83%.
Sure.
The survey showed that I'm in New York and I don't show my ID to go to the poll, but I am an AMC StubHub's member and I do show my ID every time I want to use that. Why do you think it's more difficult to go to the movies and I'm a member than vote in some states?
Well, you don't have to prove you're a citizen to go to the movies, Brittany. I mean, this bill requires.
No, I'm talking about the part where every voter has to show.
Do you think you should have to have your birth certificate match the same name on your current ID? Because that's what the SAVE Act requires. Do you think that the voter rolls should all be turned over across the country to the Department of Homeland Security? Because that's what this bill requires. This bill makes it intentionally harder for women, seniors, and minorities to vote. Like I said, the majority of Americans do not have a passport. If they had to go get their birth certificate instead, that actually amounts to a poll tax because you have to pay a fee to have a birth certificate or a passport. And I mean, we don't charge people in this country to cast their ballot. And so making sure that people, if they're going to have an ID, can have an ID that doesn't require them to pay money and that doesn't require them to jump through unreasonable hoops that are essentially impossible. I mean, should I have to change my name? I've already been through a name change, a legal name change, because of other challenges that I faced in my married name and my maiden name so that I could align all my documents. If now on top of that, I have to go change my birth certificate, why shouldn't my birth certificate be able to remain the name that I was born with? I mean, this is nothing more than a voter suppression tactic to make it harder for people that Republicans know will be more likely to go to the polls and vote for Democrats and make it harder for them to vote. That's all this is about.
But when it comes to the voter ID component, most Democrats, the majority of Americans, are for this. Do you think that this is an issue?
You're not making the distinction. Brittany, you're not making the distinction that I keep trying to impress upon you.
No, I hear your distinction,
Most
but
Americans
do you think
are for a voter ID. They are not.
No, I hear
proving you're a citizen.
I hear your distinction on the birth certificate, but I'm asking about the voter ID component of this. I mean, do you think when it comes to the voter ID component of the SAVE Act, do you think Democratic lawmakers are out of step here?
No, because we tried to get them to make changes to this legislation so that we could support the bill, so that you did have a reasonable requirement for presenting a voter ID that wasn't really designed as an obstacle to prevent people from being able to vote. So if there wasn't a provision that made it harder for women to vote, because most married women change their names, add their husband's name or change their name to their husband's name or their partner's name, and they don't change their birth certificate. If they don't have a passport, then they're out of luck. They won't be able to vote under this law. And because they passed this onerous provision, added an onerous provision to turn all the voter rolls over to the Department of Homeland Security, that is an unacceptable, unreasonable action that is completely unrelated to whether or not people should provide voter ID when they go to the polls. This is a solution in search of a problem that creates more problems. There are barely any non-citizens who vote. This is not something that is happening not only in a rampant way, but even that registers beyond tenths of a percent. So this is absolutely unnecessary, and it's unnecessary because in most places people show their ID and are required to. This requires proving your citizenship, which is a solution in search of a problem that will make it harder for people to vote who legitimately have the ability to already.